Ahoy there. Today on the Red Sea, workers who got their bosses fired. How? Management was giving an injured worker malarkey, not wanting to pay him, accusing him of gold bricking. Worker said, "Tell you what, do the right thing here, or you will be sorry." Management said, "Take your best shot." Worker called the EPA and APCD, told them where to find the logs that showed discrepancies in toxic material storage and usage. Sheriff's deputies showed up and raided the offices. Field supervisors from 10 years ago that had retired got subpoenaed. It was epic. Cost the company massively in fines and remediation. All because you wanted to duck with one poor bastard. The CEO publicly praised me for completing a task that my boss had struggled with. So my boss retaliated by forwarding all of his tasks to me in an effort to overwhelm me with work. I actually found his job pretty manageable, which the CEO also noticed and fired him, giving me his job and office. I took a cell phone video of her taking money from the safe and putting it in her wallet. I knew she was doing it, and I also knew that the moment it came out that money was missing, she'd blame it on me. She was so stupid that she did not realize she should stop doing that while I was standing 10 feet away with my phone out and facing her. Mine is pretty pedestrian, but very satisfying. I was working in a garden center. I'd been there a long time and was woefully overqualified for the job I'd been doing, and was therefore very valuable in that position. Think ops manager skills at admin assistant position and pay. We lost our sales manager 1 year and corporate hired a new one. Let's call her Flora. She was a real piece of work. I do not know what her interview looked like, but in person she was instantly and constantly rude and strident, and mean and curt and dismissive, and that attention-seeking brand of lazy where she threw her weight around without cause, talked malarkey about anyone not in the room, and collected 75% of the credit for 5% of the work. She had some knowledge, I guess, but it's way easier to teach a competent manager how to grow flowers than it is to teach an asshole horticulturist how to be a human being. Anyway, for whatever reason, corporate loved her, so she stayed. What with one thing and another, I got another job. This process was slightly accelerated by Flora, but only a little. I'd been looking for some time, mostly waiting for the right opportunity. When I gave my 2 weeks notice, I got an email the next day scheduling my exit interview with the head of HR. Now, my position did not get exit interviews. Only managers, and sometimes department supervisors, did. And everyone at my store knew why I was leaving. So there was literally *** reason for the store manager to pull strings to get me one. And he never said anything about it, but I knew. He set it up so I could tell the head of HR, a man I was very friendly with, that I was leaving because of Flora. And I did. I just laid into her. I said that Flora was the only reason I was leaving after almost 10 years with the company, during which time I wrote the company's health and safety program, trained almost every other person who did my job at other stores, made spreadsheets that got used company-wide, as well as setting audit records that still stand to this day, and all for a few pennies over minimum wage. I said I was going because she was the worst and I could not take it anymore. I found out later she was let go. I was thanked by most of my old workmates. My manager never said a word about it to me then, or since. He was a real log. I got my boss disbarred. He was an attorney who was a serial sexual abuser of female client/criminal defendants. He got away with it for over 20 years and preyed upon at least 12 different victims. The Office of Attorney Regulation censured him multiple times for other offenses, like being late to pay his annual bar fees. But even though they knew about at least 5 of the victims, they would not disbar him. I discovered that the Office of Attorney Regulation decides whether to pursue an action against an attorney based on a cost/benefit analysis. I gathered as much documentation of everything as I could over a 6-month period. I have told it before. Not fired but transferred. Had a squad leader make us all stand out in the Missouri winter soaking wet until someone volunteered for weekend duty. I told him I had previous cold weather injuries. Frostbite. He ignored it. The corporal saw my blue feet when I took off my boots and sent me to the aid station. The doctor lost his malarkey and that squad leader was in another company the next day. It's not as justice bonering as getting an asshole fired, but it's the army that's not gonna happen. Advanced through the company through hard work and dedication and slowly began to usurp the boss duties and responsibilities. Eventually the owner realized what a lazy schmuck the old boss was and laid him off. A week later I got a new title and a 35% raise. It was my supervisor. It got to the point that I had decided to quit. I had my resignation letter in my purse, but decided to let his boss know why I was quitting. Supervisor would talk about all the people on our team constantly, but only behind their backs. I got so sick of telling him to cut it out. My husband and I happened to work at the same place, different departments, and my supervisor would make sexual comments about threesomes with him. Ooh, what hotel we picked for our afternoon delight. Malarkey like that. It was so bloody uncomfortable. Apart from this, he spent most of his supervising time outside smoking. Problem was, supervisor was one of the guys, and I was the only girl. Turns out his boss was disgusted. Told his boss, who lost his mind. They started an investigation which took 3 days. They interviewed staff, they corroborated what I said. They checked the security cameras. Saw he was spending most of his workday outside smoking, and was fired. When he was told, he guessed. Was not hard. That I was the person who complained and tried to get to me to apologize. That I took it the wrong way. The best feeling was my co-workers surrounding me as he was wailed out. That was a lovely ending to it all. By doing so much, it started an investigation into what they were actually doing during their day. Officially, she was fired for sending nudes through corporate email, but the only reason they were tracking her email was to understand what she was spending her time on. Turns out it was an affair. I used to be a store manager at sneaker/sporting goods store in the mall. One of my co-managers was ducking one of my underage employees in that back stock room after the store closed on a regular basis. This was going on for several months apparently. I found out when said teenager came to me and she said that my co-manager promised her a raise that she never got. I asked her why. He said that he would give her a raise. That is when she told me about the sex in the stockroom. I had to call the police and corporate about this. We arranged a sting with help of the girl, as she acted out for the police that to meet up with my co-manager after work. Basically caught him with his pants down, to use the term. Proved he did not know how to do his job and was just passing my work offices. Wow, I thought this was normal. You must have mad skills. Was working maintenance at an ice rink. The rule for anyone who knows how an ice rink works is, if the Zamboni doors open, you get the duck off the ice. Some dickhead decided to ignore the fact that they were open and that I was standing in the doorway, and decided to rip off one last slap shot. The puck bounced off the glass and hit me in the head. I was okay, but reported it to my boss, because we have to fill out an incident report for things like that. The boss asked, "Are you okay?" I said, "I feel okay." Then he responded with, "Well, we do not really have to report it then, do we?" I reminded him of the protocol, but it was clear he did not want to do it. Since he would not do it, I sent a descriptive email of the incident up to the administration, because I felt there should be some sort of documentation/paper trail in case, God forbid, I ended up having a brain hemorrhage or something. A few days later, the boss was fired by my next shift. She was hired as a new director, did not know much of anything about what she claimed she did. The straw that broke the camel's back was when she stated her boss would sign anything she put in front of him because he did not know what it was. Oops. I had a boss who refused to make accommodations for a disabled coworker, refused to keep other staff in line, and basically let the disabled worker fall behind and get picked on because she, the boss, felt like she was not required to do anything else. I work for a local government agency and reported it to our HR and upper management. After they did nothing, I contacted them again to let them know I would be filing a suit with the ACLU for ADA violations. My boss was gone in 2 weeks and the rest of the staff had mandatory ADA trainings. I really think it's disgusting you have to threaten legal action to get something done. On a different issue, my apartment manager would not fix my no hot water problem for months until I found out it was illegal and threatened them. It was fixed next day. Some people are garbage. He grabbed the back of my neck and said, "If you ever say I'm wrong in front of a customer again, I will beat your ass." I went to the GM and told him, and my supervisor was relieved of his duties about 5 minutes later. "Hes lucky you went to the manager and not the police." One thing most people do not realize is that the official punishment for misdemeanor assault is basically a slap on THRist. But many companies will flat out refuse to hire you after that. I have seen great workers escorted out of malarkey tea factory jobs for getting into a fist fight a decade past. For a while I was a project manager who got moved around from project to project as a fixer. I was moved to a project where the customer just could not be satisfied. No matter how many people, how much attention, how we bent over for them. Our programs director, who should have been our advocate, would not manage the customer and instead just hammered his employees to do more. People on our team were being let go due to failure or quitting outright due to burnout, and he wasn't itching that he could not get good people. Because of my sort of special position as General Dog's body, I happen to have the ear of RVP. And this project came up in casual conversation. I mentioned that it seemed funny that, if the director was doing his job, how so many employees that we knew by fact and reputation were good employees had failed. A week later I heard that the director had been let go, and nothing of value was lost. Not my story but my mother's. I watched on the sidelines as a teenager. My mother's job was basically a professional fundraiser. I really do not know what else to call it. People came to her for help raise money for non-profits or other foundations that needed it. This was a long time ago, before social workers were more of a mandatory thing at high schools. My high school was very poor and did not have one. So my mother took it upon herself to set up a fundraiser to pay the salary of a social worker so my high school could have won. After raising all the money, she went to talk to the principal, who flat out refused to take any of it and said the position just was not necessary. My mother was pretty upset and just decided she would donate the money to supplies or something like that. I honestly have no idea what she did with it, but it did go to some sort of charity. After a few months, at a Christmas party, the superintendent of all the public schools in the area was at the same party, and he struck up a conversation with my mother. After some small talk, my mother said that it was such a shame that principal did not take the money for the social worker's position. The superintendent was dumbstruck and then told her that he had ordered principal to find funding for that position, and when superintendent asked him about it, he replied with, "No one is interested in that, and we just could not get the money for it." Needless to say, he lost his position, and whenever we came back from the holiday break, the school was hiring for his position. I was an intern at a tech company, and in a one-on-one/mentorship meeting, my boss asked me what skill set I wanted to pursue in the future. I said that I wanted to do back-end work. This was a programming internship. He replied and said, "Girls are not smart enough for that type of work. How about we put you on the CAP path? You'll do better there." At the time I was so stunned that I just repeated quietly that I wanted to do back-end work. The meeting awkwardly ended after that. I always thought that I would be courageous in the face of blatant sexism if it ever happened to me, but instead, I was silent because I was a 23-year-old who really needed that internship to turn into a real job. Fast forward a couple weeks, and I was out to lunch with a few co-workers who brought along a lady who had worked at the company for years. She'd been out on contract for a while, so I had not met her yet. Everyone was talking about the boss and some of the stuff he had done or said to them, mostly just rude things. So I took a chance and mentioned what happened in that meeting. She said she'd take care of it. Within a few days he was fired by the big boss. I went on my first contract doing back-end work about a month later, and I loved it. As I understand it, I was not the first person to have serious complaints about him, just the last person. Unfortunately, it is the end of the video, but do not worry, there are many more coming. Like and subscribe for more videos from the Red Sea. Thanks for watching.